Hey, AP Eagles. I'm hoping that you guys had the opportunity to start into your AP US History Review notebooks. I got mine right here that I showed you guys yesterday, right? Hopefully you guys were able to set this up. Let me just show you this real quick. Remember, this is what you guys are using to set up these pages. You can see you should have pages 1 through 8 set up, right, with your headings. I'll show you mine in just a second. And here's some review questions of things that you might want to focus on outlining on each one of those pages. Remember, guys, the idea behind this is if you take good notes in this notebook, and let me show you guys how I started mine, right? There it is, right? The first page, I wanted you guys to have early British colonial policy of salutary neglect, and I wanted you guys to kind of take some notes on this. On the AP exam, right, on the DBQ essay, it is open notes. So if you guys are really good about recording some notes and having some good material here to reference during the DBQ essay, you guys can use this in your essays, right? It counts as outside information. Maybe you get more points for that, or extra analysis, and maybe you get some more points for that. So this could be really useful in not only studying for the AP exam, but also to have next to you as you're writing your DBQ essay on May 15th to reference, add in this information, get those extra points, get yourself some college credit, okay? What I wanted to do today was just show you guys kind of how I did this and give you guys some ideas of things that you might be adding in on these pages, and hopefully that'll be helpful in kind of getting you guys started. So let's go ahead and do that real quick, right? The first topic that I wanted you guys to outline, early British colonial policy of salutary neglect. The things that I focused on my page, right? I talked about how originally when the British colonists came to the east coast of North America, they came because they were being religiously persecuted in British, because there was a lack of land and economic opportunity in Britain, and they saw the Americas as a place to maybe start their new lives. But oftentimes the British were sort of excited to see these people go, right? They were outcasts, sometimes troublemakers in Britain. So the idea of having these colonists leave, the British actually liked this idea, right? And that's where we get into that policy of salutary neglect. And in one of my questions, it said to define salutary neglect, right? Salutary neglect, if you remember, salutary is that idea of like wishing someone well, that we hope they do well. And that's what the British hoped for when the colonists came to the east coast of North America. We are wishing the colonists well. But the neglect piece is that idea of we're also not interested in helping them do well. So, hey, good luck. We hope you do well over there across the Atlantic Ocean, but you're on your own. We're not going to help you guys out, right? So you're leaving us. Good riddance and good luck to you guys. All right. And the first time that we see the British kind of break from that policy, I guess, would be those navigation acts. If you guys remember those, the navigation acts of the 1650s. And that's when the British started to try to control colonial trade to prevent the Dutch from making money off of these British colonies. But don't forget that the British failed to ever really enforce these navigation acts. So again, it sort of shows that idea of salutary neglect. While the British are interested in using that policy of mercantilism, right, mother country controlling colonies for the mother country's wealth, ultimately the British aren't enforcing these laws, and it helps the American colonists develop that sense of sovereignty and independence and freedom. All right, so that's what I focused on for my first page. All right, and I jotted down these notes, and now I can reference these during the AP exam. Let's say I need to do a contextualization paragraph for an American Revolution DBQ. Well, this has some good information that I can use in that paragraph. Okay. The next topic that I had here was the French and Indian War, right? And there were a series of questions that I wanted you guys to focus on to sort of create your notes. And that's what I did here. So I talked about the causes of the French and Indian War. Remember, the biggest causes of this is just that there was a history of tension and conflict between the French and the British, right? They had competed in a series of wars up to this point. But the biggest area of contention was the fact that the British were encircled by the French in North America, that they were entrapped on the East Coast because the French controlled the land up in Canada and then down the Mississippi River. And the British wanted access to the Ohio River Valley, and that's really where this conflict starts. It's known as the French and Indian War because, of course, the French are in it, but also each side is going to have Indian allies as well. You have the French and the Algonquin Indians versus the British and the Iroquois nation. And those are the two sides, okay? Of course, the British are going to win this conflict. But before that, I also wanted you guys to outline sort of this Albany Plan of Union. Remember that Albany Plan of Union is significant during the French and Indian War. It was designed by Benjamin Franklin, and the idea was to create a central government that would sort of sit over the top of the 13 colonies and making big decisions for all 13 colonies. It would unite them under one central government that would control things like trade and Indian relations and those types of things. But don't forget that the colonists rejected the Albany Plan of Union, right? They saw this idea of a powerful central government as something that might infringe on their rights, and they didn't want to give up their individual colonial sovereignty and independence. They wanted to stay 13 individual colonies. But the ideas of the Albany Plan of Union, right, of colonial unity, will come back into play during the American Revolution, which we'll be talking about coming up. All right, we already said that the British are going to win the French and Indian War. In the Treaty of Paris of 1763, the French are going to give up all of their land holdings in the Ohio River Valley, which is going to give access that the British had wanted to the Ohio River Valley, and allow them to expand westward and grow these colonies. And again, the colonists wanted that as well. But there are some effects, right? So it's not just did they gain access to land in the West and were able to expand, but a couple negative things. British debt, right? Wars are expensive. The British will go into debt. And of course, they will expect the American colonists to help pay for that debt. The other big thing, though, remember during the French and Indian War, there's this illusion of unity between the British and the American colonists. But that's all it is. It's an illusion. Because underneath there was tension. The British believed the colonists should have done more in the war. The colonists believed that the British should have done more in the war. So there's this underlying feeling of tension that's created at this time as well. Okay, so those are some effects. All things that I listed in my notes and that you guys should be doing too. Build these notes so that they become a great study tool for you before the exam, but also a reference during the exam. Finally, the last one for today, guys, causes of the American Revolution. And again, I'm just going to run through them quickly. I want you guys to outline the Enlightenment. Remember, John Locke is the Enlightenment thinker that believed in the consent of the governed. If your government does not represent you and protect your rights, the people have the right to overthrow that government. And the Enlightenment will be a cause of the American Revolution. The First Great Awakening is a cause. Remember, originally a religious movement, but what it focused on was the idea of defying the idea of predestination. Predestination said that when a person is born, it's already decided whether they're going to go to heaven or hell. And what the First Great Awakening promoted was the idea that we in our lives have the ability to act in ways that will improve our chances to go to heaven. So we control our own destiny. It's not predetermined for us. The political impact that this has is that it sends the message to people that, hey, you have the ability to change your life. If you are unhappy with your life, if you need to improve your life, you do have the ability to act and to make it better. And again, it promotes that revolutionary idea of make change in your own lives, right? We talked about the British debt. And of course, the British debt will lead to taxes. And you guys might want to outline some of these taxes in your review notes. Have examples of the Sugar Act and the Stamp Act and the Townshend Acts, and the ways that the British defied them through things like boycotts and protests, acts of political unity, creating the Committee of Correspondence to sort of connect the colonies together and how they were defying the British. Those are things you should outline in your notes. We talked about the idea of no taxation without representation, right? It's the idea that the bigger problem is not the taxes, but the fact that the colonists have no say in the British government, that they are not represented. That's where John Adams gave that famous quote of a representative body should mirror its constituents. When the colonists looked at Parliament, they should see themselves in Parliament. And they didn't, because there were no representatives from the colonies. All right. I also wanted you guys to outline some phrases, things like patriot and sons and daughters of liberty. Remember, patriots are going to be the people that are going to defy British rule. Sons and daughters of liberty, we classified them as that first terrorist group in American history, terrorizing British tax collectors, finding ways to defy the British. And that's eventually where we see the group come together and lead that Boston Tea Party, right, are going to be led by the Sons of Liberty. All right, Continental Congress, I wanted you guys to outline those. This is just a quick one, so you might want to look for more details. But remember, the idea of the Continental Congress is meetings where the colonists are coming together, representatives from the 13 colonies, to unite in their defiance of British rule. And remember, during the First Continental Congress, they're trying to find sort of like peaceful ways to reconnect with the British, but also be respected by the British. It's more so in the Second Continental Congress where the colonists are starting to realize that maybe that's not an option, and that's where they create the Continental Army, and they give that olive branch petition, that last-ditch effort to try to save the relationship, but ultimately it's going to be too late. And speaking of it being too late, I wanted you guys to outline Common Sense by Thomas Paine. Remember, Common Sense, that pamphlet created by Thomas Paine right before the American Revolution, or right as it's starting, is that pamphlet that basically says, guys, it's time. It's common sense as American colonists to defy the British, to gain independence from the British. There is no other option at this point. We've come too far, and at this point, it's just common sense to rebel. And then finally, guys, that Declaration of Independence, right, originally designed by Thomas Jefferson and modified and edited by John Adams and Benjamin Franklin, but filled, of course, with Enlightenment ideas about natural rights. But don't forget really what it was. It was a list of grievances. It was Thomas Jefferson saying, here are all the reasons that we are declaring our independence. Here's all the injustices that the British have committed against the colonists. And obviously at the end, finishes it by declaring independence, and that's, July 4th, 1776, and that sort of marks the official start of the American Revolution. All right, guys, hopefully this video, although quick, and I know I was talking fast, might give you guys some ideas of how you're supposed to build these note packets, right? And create the notes that are useful to you. They don't have to look like mine, but they should be something that's useful for you to help you study and review each of the units that are going to be covered on the DBQ essay. And again, to sit next to you on the day of the test so you guys can flip through these, find the topics that's being asked about, and pull information from this work to add into your essays to get those extra points. All right, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope that this is not frustrating you guys. The more work you put into this, the more prepared you're going to be to get that college credit on May 15th. The day of the AP exam. Okay, so you guys keep working hard. It's not that much longer, just a few more weeks to go. Put in the effort. You guys will get yourself ready. Going to get yourself some college credit, and that's what we've been working towards. Okay, hope you guys are doing well, and I will post another video tomorrow. We'll see you soon.